Hi everyone, I'm Chef Frank and this is Proto Cooks, and today we're gonna make brownies. These brownies are a recipe that I've been developing for a few years, and they are everything that's good about kind of a box brownie, but with great ingredients, better ingredients than what you would get in a box. So let's talk about the ingredients and then I'll show you how to make them. 1 teaspoon of baking powder, a half a teaspoon of salt, that's kosher salt. 1 cup of all-purpose flour, 2/3 of a cup of cocoa powder, 4 large eggs, a half of cup of vegetable oil and a half a cup of melted butter, some vanilla extract, 1 cup of brown sugar, a cup of white sugar. I have a mix of light and brown sugar here. That's fine. Okay, let's mix it up. Let's start with the wet ingredients, and believe it or not, sugar is usually counted as a wet ingredient. So I have my light brown sugar, dark brown sugar, and regular sugar here. I'm going to add my half a cup of butter and half a cup of vegetable oil. I'm going to add about 2 teaspoons of vanilla. I'm not going to measure it out. I'm just going to add about 2 teaspoons of vanilla. And then I'm going to crack my eggs. I always crack my eggs on a flat surface. I don't crack on the edge because I don't want shards of eggs, shells, to get into my mix. Okay, so these are 4 large eggs. Oops, see, I got the shell in there, but I can pick it out really easily. So I have a little whisk here. Break up my yolks and get this as smooth as possible. So you see, and I'm just going to try and bring it all together. So this is my fat, my eggs, my sugar, and my vanilla. These brownies have a lot of sugar in them, but they're delicious. I want to make sure those eggs are broken up really well. Okay, so those are my wet ingredients. Wet ingredients all mixed together. And now we're going to do our dry ingredients. I have a sifter. I'm going to sift these together because I always find that cocoa powder tends to lump up in these. So if you sift it together with the flour and the salt and the sugar, the flour, the salt, and the baking powder, usually get a better mix. It's not lumpy. I want to talk about cocoa powder really quick. I use a cocoa powder that's a blend of natural and Dutch process. Dutch process is usually a little darker, gives you a little more of those dark, rich chocolate notes, and the natural kind of just gives you like more of that milk chocolatey flavor. So I buy a mixture of both. I like half and half. So I'm not really, this is the brand they have in my store, whatever brand you can get your hands on. I tend to stay away from like the Hershey's. I just don't really like the flavor of those. So this is the brand that I'm using right now. So what I'll do is I'll take my flour, my salt and baking powder, and my cocoa, and we're going to sift it together. Oop, get all that cocoa out, okay? Sift it together, and all you got to do to sift is just tap. So you can tap it, just lightly tap. You see I'm putting on an angle because it tends to creep up. You can tap it, and it all just kind of goes through. Okay? If there's any lumps, you can break the lumps up. But if it doesn't go through the sieve, just don't use it. Just get rid of it, okay? So I have a little bit of salt there that really didn't make it through. And that's the dry ingredients. So I've sifted my dry ingredients together, and I've mixed my wet ingredients together, and this is how they should look. The dry ingredients should look like the cocoa is mixed in really well. The wet ingredients, everything should be incorporated. You shouldn't see any egg whites or eggs kind of floating around. It should be one really nice kind of mixture, okay? And this is, I was taught in culinary school to go mix wet into dry. I always forget, right? So basically what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take my dry ingredients and mix them into my wet ingredients and fold it together, and just be conscious of the fact that I don't want to overmix this, right? There's not a ton of flour in this. There's a lot of sugar and a lot of like fat. But I want to be careful not to overmix, right? Whenever you overmix baked goods with flour in them, you tend to get a little too much gluten, which is the protein in the flour. And that gluten makes things tough, right? Brownies, luckily, have that fat and that sugar that helps kind of back up or prevent that kind of that chewiness from the flour. But again, I still like to keep it as just mixed as possible, okay? So we're gonna mix this together, and it's a little dry, but it's gonna get there, okay? Look at that, it's coming together, right? Make sure that there's no lumps in the bottom. And you can see once it's kind of stirred together, it's nice and smooth. And I'm not really gonna go too crazy mixing it, okay? So what I have here, let me just wipe up really quick. What I have here is a 9x13 Pyrex dish. You can use a baking pan, whatever you want, and I have some vegetable shortening. So I'm just gonna take this and I'm gonna grease my pan, okay? Make sure to get in all the corners, and I just kind of squeeze it, and I'm fairly generous with this. I'm not, I don't want it to be oily, but I just want to make sure that we grease the pan really well. I think these are gonna stick anyway. I don't think that I'm not under any kind of illusion that these brownies won't stick, but this will help them freeing up as you cut them. Okay, so I have my greased pan, that's a little too much there. I have my batter, right? And I'm just gonna take the batter. It's fairly thick, okay? And I'm gonna spread it out. This is not a light and fluffy brownie. This is a fudgy brownie. And I like fudgy brownies more than I like light, airy brownies. Those are cake. This is a brownie, okay? So I get in there, try and get everything out. A rubber spatula here is your best friend. Nice silicone rubber spatula. Okay, I'm gonna put these in the oven. I'm gonna flatten this out and put them in the oven. Let me see, let's get that out. I'm gonna flatten it out, you see? Try and spread it out as much as I can. This will kind of even out in the oven. It'll loosen up and even out in the oven. Get all the batter. If you don't get it on your hands, you're not having fun. And I'm gonna put it in the oven for about 35 to 40 minutes, right? And what I'm looking for is that the center is just set. You get over there, you give it a wiggle, and the center will wiggle a little, but as it cooks up, it'll wiggle less. So for the most part, I just want to get a little bit of wiggle in the center and take it out and let them rest. So let me put these in the oven, and I'll pull them out when they're ready. I cooked the brownies for about 25, 30 minutes at 350, and now they're out and they're cooled, right? Nice and cool. I'm just gonna cut into them and we're gonna give it a taste. I'm gonna take a little edge piece. I know some people like the corners. I like a little edge piece. They're still a little warm. Maybe that's why they're falling apart, but look at that. They're still like this. Oh, it just fell apart. Okay, it fell apart, right? Super fudgy though. Let's give it a taste. You can see that dark cocoa, or that Dutch processed cocoa gives it a nice dark flavor. The top is a little crispy. Really delicious. I think they need to cool just a little more. Let them cool all the way. Serve these in ice cream, on ice cream, with whipped cream. Put whatever the heck you want on them. They're delicious. I'm Chef Frank. This is Proto Cooks. I hope you enjoy these brownies and have a great day.